It was one of those nights when the cold didn't just nip at your skin, it sank into your bones. The kind of night when even the stars seemed to hide behind clouds, unwilling to watch what the world had come to. On a dimly lit sidewalk near a quiet corner of the city, 11-year-old Liam curled up behind a dumpster, clutching the only thing he owned, a tattered wool blanket that smelled of rain, dust, and survival. That blanket had been with him through everything, the day he last saw his mother, the countless nights he went to sleep hungry, and the mornings he woke up to the sound of hurried footsteps that never stopped to look his way. But that night, something changed. Before we go further, dear viewer, let me ask you something. What would you do if you had only one thing left in the world to keep you warm, and someone needed it more than you? What Liam did that night touched hearts across the nation and reminded us all that kindness isn't about how much you have, but how much you're willing to give. So before we continue, take a moment, like this video, subscribe to Pure Kindness Stories, and join us in sharing hope, one story at a time. Liam had been homeless for nearly 8 months, ever since his mother went missing. They'd lived on the edge of poverty for years, but her sudden disappearance left him completely alone. The authorities couldn't find her, and no one came forward to take him in. Eventually, Liam stopped expecting help and started figuring things out on his own. He learned which bakery threw out fresh bread at night. He knew which parks had working water fountains. And he knew which alleyways were the safest when the city fell asleep. That evening, as he tucked himself in under his blanket, he heard a rustle nearby. His instincts flared, he was always alert to danger. But instead of a drunk or a gang member, he saw a small figure. A girl, maybe 7 years old, shivering with her knees tucked to her chest. She had no shoes, no jacket. Just a thin dress that barely covered her legs. Liam's heart dropped. She didn't notice him at first. She just sat there, rubbing her arms and shaking uncontrollably. Her lips were blue. He could tell, if she stayed like that much longer, she might not make it through the night. He approached her slowly, afraid he might scare her off. "Hey," he said gently, kneeling beside her. "You cold?" The girl nodded, but didn't speak. He hesitated, looking down at the only thing keeping him warm, his blanket. Giving it away meant surrendering his one protection against the bitter air. But he looked at her again, so small, so fragile. He didn't need to think twice. Without a word, Liam took off the blanket and wrapped it around the girl. She looked at him with wide eyes. "Aren't you cold too?" Liam smiled softly. "I'm used to it." They sat there together in silence for a while, the girl clutching the blanket tightly. Eventually, Liam dozed off, his back against the wall, the cold gnawing at him. By morning, he was coughing violently, but the girl was warm and asleep under the blanket. What neither of them knew was that someone had been watching. Across the street, in a parked car, a man had been sitting for hours. Edward Harper, a local news anchor, had stopped there after a rough night at work. He was emotionally drained, struggling with personal issues, and unsure of his purpose anymore. As he sat there, sipping coffee and staring blankly into the dark street, he witnessed the entire exchange. He couldn't believe what he saw. A boy, dirty, hungry, alone, had just given away the only thing he had to a complete stranger. It shook Edward to his core. In a world where people walked past the homeless like they were invisible, here was a child doing what most adults wouldn't. For the first time in weeks, Edward felt something stir inside him, hope. The next day, Edward did something he hadn't done in a long time. He picked up his camera and returned to that alley. Liam was still there, coughing and pale, but alive. The girl was gone, she'd disappeared during the early morning. Maybe someone found her. Maybe she just wandered off. No one would ever know for sure. Edward approached Liam and introduced himself. "Hey, kid. I saw what you did last night. That was incredible." Liam shrugged. "She needed it more than me. Do you mind if I ask you some questions?" Liam hesitated but nodded. For the first time, someone actually wanted to hear his story. That same week, Edward aired Liam's story on the evening news. He shared everything, the boy's background, his act of kindness, and how a child with nothing could still be so selfless. The story went viral. Viewers from all over the country reached out, asking how they could help. Donations poured in. Offers to adopt Liam came from dozens of families. But Edward had already made his decision. He and his wife, Emily, had been trying to adopt for years. Watching Liam made Edward realize that this boy, so brave, so full of quiet strength, was the family they had been missing all along. After a brief discussion, they started the adoption process. Liam moved into their home 3 weeks later. The transition wasn't easy. He had nightmares, flinched at sudden noises, and struggled with trusting people. But Emily was patient, and Edward kept reminding him every day that he was safe now. That he was loved. For his 12th birthday, Liam got a new blanket. Not because he needed it, but as a reminder of the one he gave away. Embroidered in the corner were the words, "True kindness is never forgotten." Months passed. Liam began to thrive. He joined school, made friends, even started volunteering at a shelter on weekends. He said he wanted to help kids like him, kids who had nothing, but still had so much to give. Years later, Liam started a foundation called Blanket of Hope, dedicated to providing warmth, food, and education to homeless children. Every blanket given came with a tag that told Liam's story. Not to get praise, but to remind others of what's possible when you choose kindness over comfort. People often asked him why he gave away that blanket that night. Liam would smile and say, "Because I knew what it felt like to be cold and alone. And I didn't want anyone else to feel that way, not if I could help it." And that, dear viewer, is the power of kindness. It doesn't take money, fame, or a perfect life to change the world. Sometimes, all it takes is one act of selflessness, a shared blanket, a warm heart, a choice to care. If Liam's story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to Pure Kindness Stories, and share it with someone who needs hope today. Because kindness is the only thing that multiplies when you give it away.